So I saw that article about the banging noises, and in this article they talked about how they had been dropping these sonar buoys down into the water, hoping to hear something, and they said that they were hearing banging noises in 30-minute intervals, which is what made them think it could be possibly them in the submersible, maybe on the bottom of the ocean floor somewhere, because they have not been able to find it floating at the top. And that the banging at the 30-minute intervals is what would make them believe that it could possibly be them. Now, I just watched the press conference that came out. I'm going to go over the press conference highlights of things that I thought was most important, which they didn't say a lot, but they did say some stuff that we did not know. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to share something with you guys about this situation that I was just flabbergasted by. So make sure you stay to the end. So the Coast Guard, Captain Jamie Frederick, came out to do a press conference and was answering questions and basically telling what was going on so far. And he basically said that obviously they have not found them yet, but he talked about all of the resources that are being brought out there.
Again, this is an incredibly complex search operation requiring both surface and subsurface elements, and our unified approach is critical. The location of the search, 900 miles east of Cape Cod and 400 miles southeast of St. John's, makes it exceptionally difficult to mobilize large amounts of equipment quickly.
And there are people from multiple different countries out there helping, including Canada, the UK, obviously the US. And Captain Frederick said in this press conference that a French team is coming as well. So that's incredible, and that is truly one of the good things that happens when there's a catastrophic event, is we all come together to help each other. So that right there is a blessing. Now, he talked about the banging, and he even brought up another expert, or the tapping sounds that they were hearing in 30-minute intervals. Now, the Rolling Stone article that I read last night that came out yesterday said that they started hearing it, I believe, at 2 a.m. the day before and weren't hearing it anymore. So I'm reading this going, okay, wait a minute. So they heard the tapping and then they didn't. So are they still alive? Are they not tapping? Is it them? And I'm wondering all these things. But this guy said today that they have been hearing the tapping as of yesterday into today as well.
The noises were heard by a Canadian P3, and that was this morning and some yesterday.
So there is a possibility that it is them and they are alive, because that would be the only thing that they could do, is get something and bang it, try to preserve their energy because their oxygen is running low. Now, as of right now, they allegedly have like 24 hours left of oxygen, and they have that CO2 scrubber in there to hopefully keep them from being poisoned by their own exhales. But there are situations and cases where people have been lost at sea or have been lost in certain, situations where they were low on oxygen, and all the odds were against them to not survive, and they survived. So it is still possible. And even if they don't get them at that 24-hour mark, which I hope that they do, I hope they get them like now, it is still possible. Like, miracles really do happen. But one of the professionals came up there and said that they have experts that listen to these sounds that come from the ocean basically all the time. Like, they're not just going to hear a little bit of tapping and think, okay, wait a minute, that could be them. The ocean makes sounds, and they're listening to sounds close to the ship, the Titanic, and because of different currents, it's going to make sounds as well.
So the ocean is a very complex place. Obviously, human sounds, nature sounds, and it's very difficult to discern what the source of those noises are at times, but I can tell you that this team has multiple sensors. They're in the area. They're sending data back expeditiously to the best in the world people to analyze that data, and then they're feeding the results of that analysis back to the unified team, and they're making decisions.
And the expert basically said that these people are trained in knowing the difference between different sounds.
It's possible a ship in the ocean, or even some mammals out there, could mimic that kind of sound.
So I can tell you from my experience with acoustics that there are sounds by biologics that sound man-made to the untrained ear, but I can assure you that the people listening to these tapes are trained.
And they do believe that this tapping could be them. I mean, they don't know. The ocean is so big, so vast, so deep where they're at. Again, over 13,000 feet. They don't know if it's them, but they know that that sound could be them.
There have been multiple reports of noises, and every one of those noises is being analyzed, tracked, looked for patterns, and reported upon.
Can you describe what the noise? Can you describe what the noise sounds like that they're hearing?
The noises have been described as banging noises.
Now, this French team that's coming to help allegedly has a certain type of equipment that can go down there and look as well, because they've heard the tapping and they're searching in the area, and now they're searching in an area twice as large as the state of Connecticut and 2.5 miles deep. I mean, they're looking all over, but it's pitch black dark down there, so they can only see so far in front of the, controls or the robots that they have down there deep in the water, because it's pitch black dark. They were asked during the press conference about food, and he kind of beat it around the bush, but he said that there was, from what they understand, a bit of food rations. I wouldn't be concerned with food rations. I mean, you can go a long time without eating and survive. Do they have water? That's the question. The general rule is a person can typically go 3 days without water. So I really hope that they have water down there. Another thing that I wanted to mention as I have been researching is this whole 96 hours worth of oxygen thing. I said earlier that miracles happen and sometimes there are cases where people have survived longer. However, this whole 96 hour of oxygen, it's never been tested with this ship before. And speaking of that, you guys, a few years ago, a whistleblower came out against OceanGate, and it was an employee that said that they were blowing the whistle, that there were severely unsafe things that they were doing or unsafe environments.
In 2018 court filings, a former OceanGate employee said he was fired after voicing concerns about the Titan, saying it posed potential danger to passengers as it reached extreme depths. But in court documents filed this April, OceanGate said the vessel was capable of diving the depth to the Titanic site with a comfortable safety margin.
On every dive we took, they lost communication. Going in how very dangerous this is.
But we also have to remember that this whole OceanGate experience was labeled an experimental trip or venture down to the Titanic. So the company was very clear with people like these millionaires and billionaires that go on these trips. I mean, you got to be a certain type of person, again, to pay $250,000 to go down and see the Titanic, which, no disrespect at all, and I don't mean to say this to be funny, but let's be real here. You can see on 4K on YouTube for free. You know what I mean? Like, you can see it real good on YouTube for free versus trying to fight to look through a little porthole. But if that's some people's dream, then that's some people's dream. It's kind of like people that climb to Mount Everest. Multiple people have come out and said that every single time this Titan goes down, it loses connection or communication with the mothership above. Every single time it does. And as a matter of fact, I guess last summer, the trip that it took, it lost communication for about 3 hours with the mothership. And that's terrifying. But that could be why, and you guys, when I heard this, I'm like, I need somebody to explain this to me. So this submersible left just this previous Sunday, it left the ship at like 5 a.m., okay? So it leaves the ship at 5 a.m. and it's descending down the 2.5 miles to get down to the Titanic. It gets down to 1 hour and 45 minutes when it loses communication with the mothership. So it loses communication. All communication is gone between 7 and 8 a.m., okay? 7 and 8 a.m. on Sunday. Now, they don't hear anything from this ship at all day long, all into the afternoon. And at 5:30 is when the submersible was supposed to pop back up to the top of the water and be floating. Well, at 5:30 p.m. comes around on Sunday and it still doesn't pop up. They wait until after 9 p.m. That's when they called the Coast Guard. So it lost communication around 8 a.m. or before, and the Coast Guard does not get notified until 9 p.m. That's all them hours. Who knows what could have happened? I don't know the protocol of calling the Coast Guard. I know that I sure wouldn't want to call them and get them involved if it was unnecessary, because again, they have to travel so far to get out there. Then you get out there and then they pop up and you're like, well, never mind. It was just, a fluke. But you're talking about from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. That seems like a long time to wait to call. I also heard an interview that was so moving and so touching with a guy that went down to see the Titanic. He's a scientist back in 2000, so 23 years ago. And when he went down there, he went down on a little submersible that was only for 3 people, but it actually had more room than this Titan did. This Titan, they're cramped in there together. And he said that when he got down there, they were looking around and then their submersible started to speed up because there was an underwater current and it sucked up their submersible and jammed it into one of the huge propellers of the Titanic. And they were stuck there for about 3 hours and he thought that he was going to die. Now, he did say that they had communication the whole time with the mothership above. They never lost communication, but they were stuck. And what were they going to do? He was like, there's no AAA that can come down, come and pull you out when you're stuck in between a propeller, about the underwater currents that we don't think about. You can't even see. You can be playing on the beach and playing in the edge of the water or, just about this deep. And the next thing you know, you're getting moved away. And people drowned all the time because you cannot see these rip currents. And this is in shallower water. It definitely ain't in no 20, 30, 50 feet, much less thousands of feet. But when you're going down this deep, there's all these different currents that you can't predict. They're unpredictable because it moves with the water. And what if they were going down there and they got swept up in a current? They could have been pushed, thousands of feet away. They could literally be anywhere if they got swept up in a current, which is also terrifying to think about. And if they lost power, and we talked about this yesterday, which obviously they had to have because there's no communication at all, not even a ding, which is sending out a signal to where they're at, no communications, no text messages, no nothing, then they are in the pitch black dark, in the freezing cold, it crammed in a little area, struggling to breathe. And that's horrifying. You're talking about pitch black, not even a bit of light, just black nothingness and quietness. Maybe you hear some rumblings from the sea every now and then. And maybe they even hear one of the robots going by that doesn't see them, but they can't do anything. Like, horrifying. And then again, you guys, I've talked about this yesterday, but I have to talk about it again because it is the thing that bothers me the most about this. So there's 5 people on this submersible. 4 of them are grown men. I mean, they have lived their lives. There's a billionaire on there, very successful. People that go on all kind of expeditions and have lived a lot of really good life. I've seen plenty of interviews about every person on there and how amazing they are and all these things that they've done. But that 5th person is a 19-year-old young man. And to think about being trapped in there with my child and not being able to help them. Like most of us as parents, we would jump in front of a bullet or anything for our kids. We would do anything to save our children. But to be trapped down there with your child and not be able to do anything to help them, you can just imagine the conversations, the tears, the I'm sorries, the trying to reassure, trying to calm, maybe making peace with passing over, praying, like the mental anguish that they're going through down there, if they're still alive, is horrifying. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the tapping could be them? Do you think that they could be alive? Other than that, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.